Wait, you have a TV?
No. I just like to read the TV guide. Read the TV guide. You don't need a TV. Television addict! Television addict! Television addict!
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, your TV Guidance Counselor, and before I get into my introduction proper here, a word of warning. You may hear dogs losing their mind in the background. This is the fourth time I've attempted to record this introduction, and they're perfectly quiet until I start recording, and then they start roughhousing. I think that is the horseplay. Although I guess it'd be dog play here. They're quiet at the moment, but there you go. If you're a regular listener of the show, you know that at least since COVID lockdown and I've been doing this show remote, the dogs, they have cameos occasionally, and you know, it kind of, that's just how it is. And they're such cute, adorable, little bloods that I can't fault them for it, but just wanted to give you that heads up. I am not ignoring them. I am aware they're perfectly safe. That is what's happening. Anyway, with that disclaimer out of the way, welcome. I am Ken Reed. I am your TV guidance counselor here each and every week since February 2014, discussing classic television using TV Guide magazines from my personal collection as the gateway into our collective past. Getting to talk to all kinds of amazingly talented and interesting people, and this week is a prime example of that. My guest this week is Tanya Donelly, who is one of the coolest people I know, just incredibly talented. You probably know her from her solo music career. She's also in the band Belly. She was in Throwing Muses and The Breeders, and sings one of my favorite songs on the This Mortal Coil records, and she's just awesome. And I've wanted to talk to Tanya on the show for a long time. She is a big TV fan and comic book fan, which we talk about here too. And I was glad I finally got to get a little bit of her time and sit down and chat TV. So you will love this episode. I know you will. And I guarantee it, in fact. And if you don't like it, I will give you your money back of the $0 you spent on this episode. If you're unfamiliar with Tanya, I just do something about that. Go buy her records, listen to her stuff. You will be just blown away by how great she is. And if you are familiar with her, do it anyway. Go back and re-listen because she is great. Anyway, it's an episode. You'll love it. We've established that. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Tanya Donelly.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Tanya Donelly, how are you?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. It's a rainy day here in the Northeast, and I kind of like that.
It's a rainy month.
It really is. Yeah. The world is broken. For some reason, Noah-like floods is more comforting.
It's just something. I mean, this is actually, I'm not trying to be YB normal, but this is actually my favorite kind of weather. But even this is testing my rain limits at this point.
Yeah. My inner teenage goth loves this, but for like 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want to be able to go outside. Also, one of my dogs is a standard poodle and is super prissy and will not go out.
Not a golden doodle, and she will not go out. I have to like boot her out just to pee. And then
he like sneaks around the house to try and like go in the house. Which he's like 5. It's a whole thing. But people aren't here to hear about my dogs, even though they do. When I asked you to do this, you kind of wanted like late 70s ish.
Mm-hmm.
We went 77, the year punk broke.
I went 77. Yep.
June 4th to the 10th. We got a great piece of artwork on the cover here of Alan Alda.
I love it.
And because I scan these like on 2 pages at once, we get the back cover too. And I swear to God, I've never seen the same cigarette brand twice. I had no idea there were so many brands of cigarettes.
So many of them. Yeah.
I've never heard of more.
I know. This was kind of at the height. I mean, or I guess this was at the beginning of the decline of smoking. But yeah, that struck me too. It's just all of the smoking and the smoke. There's one ad in here that ties it into being thin, which is just nuts. incredible, the messaging back then and now, but back then, but just like absolutely unapologetically, like, I like to have a thin frame. So I smoke this, I smoke a thin cigarette to keep my thin frame. It's just, oh yeah.
This is like 2 years after they just blatantly would market speed to housewives.
Yeah.
So, Mama's little
Get
helper.
your shit done, ladies.
Yeah, and be nice and thin while doing it.
Exactly.
The most maybe the most sexist ad I've ever seen is in a TV guide. It's for cigarettes. I forget the brand, but it's like a guy going like, I like my cigarettes like I like my women, rich and thin.
Oh my God.
It's awful.
It's
awful.
just the Virginia Slims thing, though. It's just here's just the most ham-fisted message we can send. Zero subtlety. We're not trying to hit you at the subconscious level. We're just saying this is what you need to do.
In some ways, it makes me really envious of people who worked in that industry, in that it required no skill or thinking. Like cigarettes, you get thin. Done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No sublimation. We're just going for it. We're just telling you.
Let's go drink at lunch now. We're done for the day. And then before we get into the listings here, there's also an amazing 2-page spread.
Oh, can I just tell you, I'm so thrilled that I picked this year, and I knew I did it for a reason. When you wrote to me, I said, something is telling me 1977, summer of 1977. And I now know why, because on some level, I remembered this like halcyon time, prime time.
Oh yeah, this is like a gem of an era, and
it is.
We hadn't moved into the 80s yet, where it was still this sort of old Hollywood, like studio system glam, but mixed with that weird 70s-ness. Kind of got the best. Well,
and just like what Mary Tyler Moore and her whole stable brought into the, I'm looking at this stuff just like, this all most of the stuff that I picked holds up. My kids watch this stuff, and maybe not anymore, but they went through a period of retro viewing, and Mary Tyler Moore, they were just both of them. Just, this is genuinely funny and smart and great.
It was, we could talk about more when we get to that listing, but it was so ahead of its time. And in some ways, when I think of people like Mary Tyler Moore or Lucille Ball, the only way they got those things made was they literally had to start their own production companies.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, and there's a lot to take to task, but in context, time-wise, it's pretty astounding.
Yeah. I mean, Bonnie Hunt is one of my all-time heroes. She's the best. And we had her on the show and I couldn't believe it. But she was the first woman to write, produce, and star in her own TV show. And that was in 1995.
Oh my God. Are you kidding?
That's how long it took. 50 years into television before a woman wrote, produced, and started her own show.
Oh.
So we're talking 20 years.
I have to say I'm genuinely surprised by that information, but it just feels like...
There has to be some foreign language.
Is what I want to say.
Oh yeah, it does tracks. That has to be. There has to be like some French or German term that doesn't translate for being surprised, but also going, yeah.
Exactly.
There isn't.
I'm surprised against my will.
Yes.
Against my better sense.
My brain is surprised, but my heart is not.
Yes, exactly.
And there's an ad in here for Roller Coaster, a movie which I've never seen. I don't know if you have. No,
a lot of this stuff I actually don't recognize. It's interesting. I just am loving looking through. Dean was saying that he found a huge cache of TV guides in his grandparents' house, and they just got rid of them, and he wishes he'd kept them now, because like scrolling through this, it's just the incidental things are so interesting to look at.
It's a perfect snapshot of a time and place, because it was just made to be disposable. And it's just like, we were talking about this a little bit before, we can watch pretty much anything we want at any time, anywhere now.
Yeah.
And in some ways it kind of sucks, because you're like, I have no idea what to watch. So going through these, sometimes I'm like, oh, I forgot about that.
Well, and I do like the scarcity of choice is so cool. There's something really, it's such a relief to look at it, because, and it does, I mean, it brings you back to a time where if there wasn't anything that you wanted to watch, you just walked away from the television.
Well, I didn't, but you're smarter than me and have a skill set and a talent.
Well, this also in 1977. I also had pretty firm parental restrictions.
Yes, my parents were just like, whatever. We're gonna go. So it's interesting though too. Like I always talk about like stumble upon culture and like so many things that would become lifelong interests or loves for me. I would never have hunted out myself. I just happened to see them, like seeing The Damned on the young ones, or catching them. I was just like, I don't know what this is, but this is my favorite thing now.
Yeah.
And if I had to look for that, I wouldn't have known to look for it.
Yeah. I mean, SNL alone, just the music that my siblings and I discovered on that show as kids, which we would sneak. We would actually wait for our parents to fall asleep and then we'd go, because we weren't allowed to watch that show when we were really young. And I just remember just the musical act, a lot of my, that show kind of informed what I started listening to up to a point.
Everyone usually brings up like the Bowie performance of Klaus Nomi. That one, people are like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Well, just like I remember Kate Bush, just watching her on SNL and just turning to Kristen and just saying, what are we looking at? What is this?
I feel like I say that whenever I see Kate Bush. And I'm a fan.
I'm a huge fan, but at the time I was just sort of, I can't tell what's happening to me right now. And
I think she was like maybe 18 or 19 when she was on SNL too, which is crazy.
Really? Wow.
Because I think she got signed at like 15 by David Gilmour.
Oh my God, I didn't realize. I actually did not realize that.
She had written a bunch of songs on piano, like 96 songs on piano, and David Gilmour heard like 4 songs, and he got her signed to, I forget what label she was on. I want to say Island or something. And instead of releasing the record, they put her through, like, speaking of old school Hollywood, like a training program, like in dance and mime and theater and music for 2 years.
Really?
So she produced the first record herself.
And that's where the dance comes into it? That was a premeditated sort of track? Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't know that.
Which is so 70s. It was a whole weird thing where 1970s, like, you need to be able to do dance and mime if you're going to be a performer.
That's amazing.
Okay. Which is very strange. Did you ever meet her? Because you guys played a ton in England.
No, I never did. And I would be that would shut me down.
You think so? Is there anyone else that you were ever starstruck by?
Oh yeah, plenty of people. Neil Young. I'm easily starstruck, I would say. I rarely rise to the conversational challenge in a situation where I'm, and in fact, I tell this story a lot, but I went to see Elvis Perkins, who I adore, here in Boston, and he was manning his own merch table after the show, and Dean and I sort of started to head over to say hi and to buy merch. But I got about 30% of the way there and just took a hard right turn and walked out of the building.
Abort. Nope, we're not doing it. I've been made.
Dean was like, I turned around, you were gone.
Like you had thrown a smoke bomb.
It just had this feeling of this just isn't going to go well. I'm just going to,
Yeah, it's always weird too, like, especially if it's someone who you admire who is in the same creative art as you, because you feel almost be like, oh, I'm qualified in this, though. Yes. I'm not just like a person.
Yeah. Yes.
Which is,
Yep.
So ridiculous.
Yes.
But hey, that's what happens.
Yep.
So let's see. Saturday night. Oh, I'm already excited for this one.
Saturday night. I love that this is the first one. So, okay. So there's a little, I would say this is the only sort of, I think, no, there are 2 conflict nights, which would have, there would be a division between what was happening at my mom's house and what was happening at my dad's house. And that is because my mom, Mary Tyler Moore, 100%, and then moving into It would be Newhart after that. My dad also loved Mary Tyler Moore, but he had this. So he had this thing during this era, this really smart thing that he would do where we would have to defend a program in order to watch it. And it was like TV court, basically, not to be confused with court TV.
Right.
TV court where we would have to sort of say, here's why we want to watch this. And we campaigned hard for Wonder Woman in his house. She's a strong role model. It's about making good choices and good versus evil and fighting the good fight. I just remember being just like, and in the back of our heads, we're just like, please just let us watch a superhero show.
And I feel like for a dad, all you had to do would be like, Dad, my argument, 2 words, Linda Carter, done.
Well, yes, exactly. Can you just take a peek?
Sure.
And also like, I would bring in like, because I was a big comic book reader. I was just like, this ties into my whole, it's kind of like reading. It ties into my reading. I just remember, and we finally won. We did win that one. And this is all, I'm making it sound like it was we had so much fun with it doing this because it really did. I think he set us up to really be discerning about what and why we wanted to watch something. So it was a really smart thing. And he was really funny about it too. Like we had a blast at TV court.
That ties into one thing that comes up on the show a lot, where I talk about how there's a couple of different skill sets that those of us that grew up pre-millennium were forced to develop, whether we wanted to or not. And one of them was advocating for a show you want, especially if you had siblings, because you maybe only had an hour or whatever. So you had to convince everybody this was good.
And there was one box in one room most of the time, and you all had to be in agreement. Yeah.
Which was rare. That was never a unanimous. There was like maybe 2 shows.
Never. Yeah, right.
So you're like, but this is really good. And it was also not even just advocating, but there'd be bargaining as well. Like, if I can watch this. So it was a compromise thing that kind of, you built a skill set, which sounds silly, but it's totally true.
Right. And I mean, Mary, back to Mary though. I think Mary Tyler Moore is one of that and Carol Burnett are my favorite comedies. Favorite sitcoms of all time, probably.
I rewatch Mary Tyler Moore a lot, especially like the holiday episodes every year, and they are always fun. Like they're the shows that it's almost funnier when you've seen them a ton because you start laughing, anticipating the stuff.
Yeah, I just like the luminaries that came out of that show too. It's incredible, the talent on that.
In front and behind the camera, like all the people who did Cheers and, all the stuff, the Taxi and all the people that came out of the behind the scenes and then the people on camera.
Oh, wow.
James L. Brooks came out of MTM and.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was like it was sort of like TV writer producer school for the 80s.
Right. Oh, that's so cool.
This particular episode is kind of a very special episode.
It is. And it's so funny because like a few times as I was looking through this issue, I was sort of like, wow, a lot of intense ones.
Yeah.
This is a very heavy week.
Mary fears that her use of barbiturates to cure insomnia is turning into a dependency.
And I would say that's a pretty valid fear, Mary.
And also weird plot for a comedy show.
It is. Yes, but they did kind of like dip into this stuff. It's such an interesting show that way because still always funny, but had these moments of gravitas, which is why it had the depth and love that it had. I love it.
Which is something that always appealed to me because it's a very natural humor in that, like, as someone who grew up a lot of terrible ways, a lot of terrible people, that sort of gallows humor or the jokes you make to cope are often the funniest, but the most necessary. And in a show like the MTM Universe shows or, later in Roseanne and things like that, like it makes sense that they're with very heavy things. It's
right.
Not incongruous.
And accurately reflected culturally the shifting sands of the 70s.
Yes. It was no longer disco and cocaine were just starting to people realize some of these things may be a problem. You may have to pay a price for this at some point.
I don't feel so good most of the time.
No, as New York was burning. There's a great documentary called 1977, The Coolest Year in Hell. And it's just about New York City in the summer of 1977. So
Really?
from May to September 1977, right when this issue is. And that one summer was Summer of Sam, Son of Sam murders.
Oh, yeah.
It was the big New York blackout. It was basically hip hop's invention. There were all these sort of huge hip hop innovations. There was like a punk rock stuff going. It was this crazy summer this year. And that's like everything that year was about.
What's that called? What is that?
It's called 1977, The Coolest Year in Hell.
Wow.
It's really good.
That sounds great.
Yeah. Especially this, I didn't know, like Africa Bambaataa, who's apparently from Boston, which I didn't know previously. When they used to do these like DJ battles, they'd crack open a street light with a crowbar and plug into it for the power for their DJ setup, which is just like, that's amazing.
Oh, amazing.
Like,
is that covered in that?
Oh yeah. It's a big chunk of it.
I want to watch that tonight.
It's a big chunk of it because I think it's Africa Bambaataa, although I think it is, but he's talking about when the blackout happened, he had just cracked open a street light. So he's like, oh shit, what did I do?
That's incredible.
So it's,
yeah.
but then appropriately given to what you're saying about your parents, also at 8:00 on Action 4 News, the topic is children of divorced parents.
Is it really? I didn't notice that. Oh, wow. That's perfect.
It's right above Wonder Woman.
Oh, yeah. There we go. All right.
Just it's meant to be. Wonder Woman, I will say, does not hold up very well.
I know that I actually haven't revisited that one since that time. So I don't know at all. I do see it's another, Nazis capture an alien sent to pass judgment on warring earthlings.
That classic plot.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the first season of Wonder Woman
sounds like a lot to bite. That's a big bite to chew.
That's a heavy thing. There's a lot going on there. That first season took place in World War II, and then it switched from I think ABC to CBS, and then all of a sudden was in the 70s for the rest of the seasons.
Right.
Were you reading Wonder Woman at the time? Because you were saying you were reading comics.
I was. My brother and I were into. I was into superhero comics as a kid, and then I took a break, and then I came back to like Love and Rockets and Elektra and Dark Knight. When it started getting the graphic novel really took off, I got back into it again at that point.
You may appreciate this, although you may be mad at me about it. I was at LA Comic-Con maybe 2 years ago, and Gilbert Hernandez was there, brother, and he just had a stack of sketches, and they were like $20 each.
Oh my God!
And I didn't buy one because I was like, it'll get ruined.
I am mad at you. Then.
Yeah, I am mad at myself now too. But he was just
outrageous, Ken.
I know. He's just like, yeah, you want a Hopi drawer or whatever? I was like,
oh my God.
But I imagine, he's still around. He probably still does that. And I will say, if you haven't seen it, the Justice League cartoon from the early 2000s is pretty amazing.
That's what I hear. I actually have been told that. That's on my list of things to check out. No, I've heard that from more than one source. It comes up whenever I talk about being into comics as a kid and as an adult.
It's very smart, and it's not that like cheap dark stuff where it's just like they swore and it's violent, so it's adult.
Right? Yeah.
No, it's and side note, Rhode Island native Susan Eisenberg does the voice of Wonder Woman.
Oh, cool. Some hometown.
Yes. And then did you do Bob Newhart at 8:30?
Oh, yeah. Yes. If we were doing, definitely. And Bob Newhart is a family favorite, and also a favorite of my grandparents, my dad's parents, who we spent a lot of time with. They loved both Mary Tyler Moore and Bob Newhart. So if this was a night, and a lot of Saturday nights, to be honest, we were at their house. So that both of those would be the lineup there too, would be Mary into Bob. And actually, my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, had a radio show that she's briefly co-hosted with Ted Knight.
Wow. Where was that?
I know. So there's that catch too. In Rhode Island, it was,
wow.
I feel like it was probably only a few episodes. And I've actually tried to find it in the Library of Congress and tried to figure out if we can find her show anywhere. She might have been a guest on his. There's a lot of vague sort of, was she a guest on his show a few times, or was he a guest on hers, or what was the?
Well, if my listeners, here's no surprise to you, a lot of them, and I mean this as a compliment, nerds.
Great. Try to find it.
Yeah, a lot of archives. Yeah. So if anyone can find it, they will find it, and I will get it.
It was Rosalie Susan Donnelly.
And Ted Knight. All right, we're
yeah.
You know what I've discovered? Ted Knight also, you know the old Superfriends cartoons when they'd go in and out of commercial, be like, the Superfriends are at, like that narrator. That's Ted Knight.
No, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
Yeah, of course it is. That's him. 100% that's him.
It's amazing now. And I think it was like, how did I not notice that? That's clearly him. And right. Hello, Lou. And then at 9:00, what'd you do?
Oh. Yeah. So anyway, I'm looking at Newhart now, and I feel like I remember this one. What a weird plot. Bob's mother announces that she's breaking up with his father, a fisherman whose complete angling has become a complete bore after 47 years. What is complete PLEAT angling, I wonder? I
mean, it's some kind of
like fly fishing,
right? Complete. Yeah, it's not complete as in total. It's complete. Right. That is, I have no idea. I'm intrigued by it because I don't know what it is. So in that respect, it can't be boring. I do recall this episode as well. Someone great plays Bob's father. And I think I can't remember now.
Is it listed there?
It's not listed here, I don't think. Yeah. Bill Daly. But I remember it being an actor that I like, and I can't remember now. I love Newhart. And to your point,
so funny. He's just the sweetest, funniest man. He's the most endearing, lovely. There's something just so, I should tell my kids, because my kids' favorite holiday movie is Elf, obviously. And they just, adore him in that. And, so good.
It's really weird too, because at this time he seemed, by all accounts, and everyone I know who knows him or worked with him, he's like that kind of guy. Like, I mean, he's a little savvier than he plays on TV, right. But he's that kind of guy. But somehow got completely intertwined with that whole Rat Pack mobbed up, like Dino Las Vegas crew.
Is that true?
Yeah, he'd like guest host the Tonight Show, and he'd be at like the roasts and all those things.
Oh yeah.
Super weird. I mean, I guess it's because the only place to do comedy.
He's a grounded friend. We all need a grounded friend.
He's the guy who would be their designated driver.
Yes, exactly.
I think you better go home now, Dean. I love that show. 9:00 though. This is a weird choice.
That would be non-negotiable.
All in the Family?
No, National Geographic. All in the Family. No, it would be National Geographic on both sides and at my grandparents. So both of my parents' homes, that would be. Everybody watch. We all watch that.
And this is a big one. This is Dian Fossey. Search for the Great Apes. Yes.
She later became just somebody that I just read about and became really focused on. I just loved her and Goodall. It just went through. I think that was, not an uncommon obsession for 11 and 12-year-olds at the time. They were so high profile, and just, it was so exciting to think about at that point, just living on a mountainside with these creatures, with these beautiful animals and gorillas in particular, who I just think have evolved into something perfect.
Yeah, they're amazing. And I think
they are amazing. They're just these family-oriented vegetarians.
Did you ever see the footage of Coco meeting Mr. Rogers?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
Speaking of crying, Jesus Christ.
This is like beautiful soul encountering beautiful soul.
Just pure.
Yes, pure. Yep.
Pure thing.
That is such a beautiful meeting. I just love it.
Oh, and she's like, oh yeah.
You just she picks up on his vibe immediately. It's the sweetest.
If people haven't seen that, just pause this right now.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like, I feel like it's nourishing to watch that.
Your life will be improved.
Definitely.
Like your credit score will go up somehow.
The Danny year of life. You'll,
Good. And Dian Fossey, I think Gorillas in the Mist is about her, right? Isn't that? Sigourney Weaver plays her, if people don't know her story. That was, I think.
Yes. And so this definitely National Geographic in general, but absolutely this particular episode, that's what would have been chosen. This would have been one of the unanimous votes. One of the rare unanimous votes in our house, kids and adults both. So,
yeah, I mean, though that show, which sounds like it would be boring, I guess. It sounds almost like you're going to watch something educational, but everyone I know who grew up in the era of National Geographic, there was appointment television.
I feel like we just never thought, for whatever reason, that one, my parents were clearly loftier viewers than we were, but that one we were just my brother and I looked forward to that, to any National Geographic special. We were there for it. It was always exciting, beautifully paced, really made you want to travel, which, I think that just felt to me like this window, a real window, just exciting.
And you never quite knew what it was going to be either. It might be like octopuses, or it might be, and it is weird for us to try to explain to people younger than us that there wasn't a travel channel and a National Geographic channel and an Animal Planet and 24 hours a day of all these. And it was kind of the only place you got that stuff.
Yes. And it was sort of, there was like, this, and this might be simplifying and really personalizing, because this was my personal anecdotal experience, but moving from my astronaut obsession into my anthropologist obsession, there was sort of these two sciences that really were so focused on, and, kind of in the way that chefs are now.
Yeah.
Where there were like anthropologist celebrities, and, just to have that, it was just an interesting time where, we'd have posters of,
Jacques Cousteau.
Yeah, Jacques Cousteau. Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. It was explorers were still a thing. It was a weird thing.
Right. And that's the tie-in. That's it. Those are both of those sciences are focused on exploration. That's exactly right.
The world was bigger, and the world's a lot smaller now, I guess is how I would say. Like,
right.
I'm sure we could probably find a live webcam that we could pull up on our on our phone that's in like the remotest part of the Amazon right now to watch birds or something. But that was not the case. Like, there were still people looking for dinosaurs they thought were alive in Africa.
Yeah, right. Yes, and you would see it, right, and it was just right. Yeah, no, it's true, and I mean, there's plenty to explore now, and it's never not going to be a fully discovered life, or universe. But back then I just felt like, and like, it was just all these doors and windows flying open, and look at this, and how about this? And here's this new thing. And everything just felt like, wow, I go to space or Africa first.
That's the choice we all make.
As an 11-year-old.
Yeah. Oh, geez, this is a tough call. Did you guys travel a lot when you were a kid, or did you really not start traveling?
No, not really. Yeah, no, not till we did a lot of local traveling. Both of my parents are very outdoor. My dad in particular is wicked outdoorsy. And my mom is too, but like, we would just go, we did a lot of like, driving camping trips and tons of exploring on that, but primarily local, I would say. My dad took me to New York a lot because he's an actor and he's a big theater buff. I think my first flight ever, I think I was 13, and it was to Florida. So
still East Coast.
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, that's still pretty great too, because it hit me when in my teens, when I was in my punk band and we started driving around. It's like, oh, New York's like a couple hours away.
Yeah. Right.
built so far. I'm like, oh, we can just drive there, drive home.
I know. And there's actually something kind of nice about that. I feel like I really know where I'm from because any spare vacation time, and there wasn't a lot of it, but any like summer activity was all figuring out where we were and then sort of maybe going to Maine. Maybe.
Yeah. Like go a couple states over, but that's if things go real well.
Right.
Yeah. So it is kind of, as someone who grew up around here and, we didn't have a ton of money growing up, television, which was free and pumped into our house, was this sort of experience that we never would have been exposed to otherwise.
Right. Yeah.
Which is great. So where are we? Sunday night? Where are we? Yes, Sunday.
We're on to Sunday, yeah.
Yes. What'd you do?
And I also need to be clear that like this is sort of a fantasy viewing that I'm talking about right now, because in reality, we were only allowed to watch an hour in both homes, an hour per day. So, and that was on a good day. And sometimes never. So this is sort of my like kind of like hindsight fantasy.
2 hours?
My fantasy week. Yeah, exactly.
Was it always the same hour? Was it always like 8:00, or could you like shift that hour if there was something?
We could shift it depending on what was going on, and then also what the show was.
Yeah, parents always are a little bit more forgiving if there's a show they like.
Exactly. Yes, and I carry on that tradition.
Yes, well, that is your right as a parent. I guess I'll let you watch this as a favor.
Yeah, well, I pretend I'm doing other things.
Yeah, this show. So I imagine you did Rhoda.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And that would be across the board too. This was, one of my favorite shows. I just loved this show. It just felt like this one felt like people that we had in our lives when I was a kid. Like it felt like everyone there was just something really familiar about her sister, their neighbor, like everything. This just felt real. This one felt real to me because it felt like people that in fact, Rhoda really, really reminded me of my mom's closest friend when I was little. And so this one felt like, okay, I sort of feel like this is the first sort of reflection of some of the people who were in my life.
Yeah, it was much more blue collar than Mary Tyler Moore.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think only 3 seasons too. And the network really meddled with it, where they made them get divorced. That was the network that made them do that.
Wow.
Because the ratings went down when they got married because like the tension of the relationship was gone. Right. So the network was like, yeah, I gotta have them get divorced.
Yeah.
Because watching as a kid was kind of devastating.
They're like, yeah, I know. Yeah. Especially because it coincided with almost everyone I knew, every adult I know. That was sort of like a time when my friends, so many of our parents were splitting up. But I think that's also kind of what made it feel relatable. And I feel like Valerie was such a natural. She just brought this like really unstylized, really natural vibe to that show.
Yeah, she's like movie star beautiful, but doesn't seem that way.
Yeah.
Like seems like a very pretty person you would know instead of like inhumanly, like there are people who are like, oh, that's, but, and just the fact that she's like so New York-y and like kind of tough and it was a character I feel like we never really saw on television before that.
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like that's like, she just felt real to me. I feel the Honeymooners, Alice felt like that to me too.
Yeah.
A little bit, but I didn't really watch that show that much, but I remember that striking me with that one too, that she felt like a real person.
I remember as a kid, whenever I'd see people with Boston accents, usually on People's Court, they felt like real people, but I didn't know why, because I didn't know about regional accents. So I'd be like, why are there real people on this show all of a sudden? And it was like 2 people suing each other over, and then right after Phillis, which is still a good show, although
my God, that show. That character is the Cloris Leachman's a genius. I love that show is hilarious, and her relationship. I felt like I loved that they took on like her relationship with Bess too. That's such an unusual. I mean, for the time, I feel like just to kind of take on that new parenting style. It's a little mean at times because there's a lot, but I do.
Such is life.
Yes, exactly. Such is life. Yeah. That one too. Wait, what? I'm trying to find that. What was this? What was that Phillis episode?
This Phillis is Leonard defies a threat on his life and honors his conscience by voting yes on a low-income housing bill.
Wow. See?
Heavy. Again, heavy.
Yes. Right. I know. And this is the MTM, still in the MTM stable. They took it on, you know?
And Cloris Leachman, who we just lost last year at like 90 something, she had such an amazing long career. Like she's in Kiss Me Deadly in the 50s, and then, Young Frankenstein and television, like so much stuff. She's just,
her timing, just impeccable timing. She's just the funniest. I that show too. Oh my God. Can you imagine? Just like, look at these lineups. And I know, probably dating myself right now because I am connecting so hard, but it is just like, these are legitimately hilarious, wonderful shows. And again, this is one of those things where I find myself eating my words often because, as a parent of young adults at this point, because there is so much that I remember as holding up a certain standard, and then I get corrected quite often. And rightly corrected.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. But I feel like I can say with some confidence that these stand up in context.
I think you're right. It's fairly objective that these shows stand the test of time and were in reruns forever. And to your point earlier, like your kids watch them and aren't like, look at this stupid old show. Like it feels fresh.
Right. Yes.
I think overall, they're all very low concept shows. They're shows just about characters and people talking to each other, which makes them much more timeless than something that's, super high concept.
Right.
Like Wonder Woman.
Yes. Like alien interference.
Nazi aliens and a
Which
Greek goddess.
Too. Don't get me wrong, the alien stuff I'm about.
Super fun,
all about it.
A little bit dated. Might be a little dated. So Monday, what'd you do?
Monday. Oh, does that take us into? We still have Sunday at 9, which I think.
Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry.
I think I would have said. That's the Tonys for sure. Definitely the Tonys.
Your dad is the influencer, or would you?
Yeah, my mom loves musical theater, and my dad is he would be. That would absolutely be on.
This is a killer lineup on Broadway. This year we have Jack Albertson from Revere, Mass, Beatrice Arthur, aka B. Arthur, Buddy Ebsen, Damon Evans, Gene Stapleton, Leslie Uggams, Barry Manilow, Diana Ross, and Lily Tomlin.
Wow. Wow.
So amazing. Annie, was that the first year of Annie?
I don't know. I have no idea.
It must.
Yeah, I was. That's one that would have been on, but I might have been walking in and out of the room.
My sum total knowledge of Broadway is the things performed at the start of the Macy's parade every year.
I have two. I gave birth to 2 Broadway fans and aficionados, so I have a kind of like a secondary education through that.
I've never seen a play. I've never seen a thing on Broadway.
Oh,
it's a huge hole.
I've seen a lot.
I feel like people have seen enough for me.
Some happily, some not.
But that is the nature of Broadway.
Yeah.
So that's on that night. And then Monday, what are you doing?
And then Monday, let me scroll down to Monday. A lot of ads between Sunday and Monday.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of like home correspondence courses.
Yes. And like hair pieces and okay, let's see. Little House, definitely. Although Circus of the Stars might have trumped it for that. It would have normally been Little House that night. And this is a particularly dramatic Little House. This whole week is so high drama. I remember this episode because I remember being so upset by this episode because I always had like a little soft spot for Nellie. and I love Alison Arngrim. I think she's an incredible actor. But this is like an unforgivable Nellie episode, almost unforgivable.
And Nellie was the bully?
Yes. Yeah. Yep. But then also he's always was about to be redeemed. There was always like a moment where it was one of those things where in the 11th hour, there's regret or there's, you know, a comeuppance or something that happens that turns it around and kind of makes your heart go out to her a little bit. But she's pretty awful. And this is a terrible one where she pretends to be paralyzed so that Laura will wait on her. Oh.
I wonder how many kids took that as
to come back from.
It really is. It's the first of two parts. I wonder how many kids took that as a lesson in doing the right thing versus kids who went, "That's a great idea."
I think that like divides childhood into two very different things.
It's a glass half full, glass half empty. What do you take away from this?
And then those that are in the middle that are sort of like here's how I would have done it. Let me tweak that.
Yeah, she could have gone hysterical blindness. I feel like that would have been more believable.
Yes.
Amnesia might have been an option.
Yeah.
The Circus of the Stars is just amazing. This is the first one that they ever did, and it went on for about 20 years, and you could never do it now because they would never let actors do this.
And was that John Davidson hosted?
Yes, John Davidson hosted this one.
Not listed there. And then, but who was the other? There was a woman that did it with him.
So this one, Bernadette Peters.
Oh,
is co-hosting.
Oh, wow.
And Jack Cassidy.
How are you? I don't see information on that.
So this is on page 57. It has it on there.
Oh, I see. There's a big ad right next to it.
Yes, it's the business
I'm
management
just looking
school.
at the little thing. Okay, I see.
Yeah, so this one we have seals, elephants,
Newman.
bears, ponies, doves, and dogs. Valerie Perrine, Ruma Shanahan, Gene Stapleton, Ed Asner's doing magic tricks, Peter Fonda.
I'm surprised to see Newman and Woodward in the thing.
77.
Yeah. Oh, there's Joanne right there.
David Jansen throws daggers at Linda Carter.
Can you imagine? I would see that this needs to be pulled out and this needs to be resurrected, this concept.
Oh yeah. I mean, they brought back Battle of the Network Stars, but like this one, I feel, I don't know if they could, it just seems like it wouldn't be like, you couldn't get anyone to insure this.
No, exactly.
Like I had Candy Clark on, and she was in this this episode of Circus of the Stars, and Candy's one of those people. First of all, I just talked to her about David Bowie and Man Who Fell to Earth for like 4 hours, but she was like, "I want to do the big cat taming thing," and they're like, "Yeah, sure." So she's taming tigers, and one of them attacked her. And the trainer just ran away, and this tiger had her by the leg, and one of the PAs jumped in and fought the tiger off, but it broke her leg. It didn't break the skin.
Oh my God.
It snapped her leg. And so she was like, "No, I still want to do it."
Right.
So they were like, "We can't have you do that. You're going to do trained ponies instead."
And she still got hurt.
She still got hurt. Yeah.
You couldn't even share that.
No. I'm like, you got attacked by a tiger?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, whatever.
You know, it's, I think that both of my kids, and it's hard for me to stop referencing my kids because I was,
you're that age. Yeah.
When we're this time we're talking, but just especially my younger daughter, who just yearns for complete freedom and agency in her life. When she was a little kid, like 4, 5, 6 in there, she would just, every night at bedtime, she'd just be like, "Tell me about the 70s. Tell me about," just like you got on a bike at dusk and just rode off and didn't have to come home until, just
right.
I mean, just the yearning that it bring, and so a story like you just told, she would just be like, "Hell yes." Like this is her, she feels like she was born much too late. 40 years too.
I mean, I don't know if it was like I was hanging out at the Rat when I was like 12, I think. But my parents would just be like, well, you just take the train in, you come home eventually. What's the problem? But when I see a 12-year-old now, I'm like, that's such a small child. I wouldn't let them go and hang out at a book club.
Yep.
And
there are pros and cons to everything we're talking about. The 70s were inarguably not as safe, I'm safe, I guess. Is that true even though?
No. See, that's the thing.
I mean, it's not true. That's the thing. I feel like,
if you look at the statistics, because everyone will be like, we used to ride our bikes, couldn't do that now. But really, there are much less kidnappings, much less crime, but we hear about it more. We have more sensationalist media, not necessarily more of those things. So it's a very weird world where the perception is not the reality. Right.
But there was, there's something too, you just like, there was a self-navigation that we honed, that I hope there's a version of that. I think there is. And I actually do think in some ways my kids are way savvier than I am now.
I'm not a parent because the only thing I could do for the world was end my bloodline. But but I read an interesting article about the sort of shift from the 80s and 90s where it was like, we're going to book our kids every minute of their life doing something because that's the best thing for them, versus that sort of pre 80s, 90s, 70s stuff and earlier, where that sort of free range thing and actually was much more beneficial because that free play allowed kids to learn like problem solving and
and ownership of environment. Like I feel that was one of the biggest things that I don't know if it's a skill, it's just hardwired at this point. Just we owned our neighborhoods, we owned our towns, we had our own, we lived in our own bandwidth of it that belonged to us. And I do feel like my kids have missed out on that a little bit because just everything is so pre-organized and pre-planned and scheduled, and not everything, but more, definitely much more. So.
Absolutely. It's hard to tell too, because it's the kind of thing that like you don't know what was necessarily better till like 20 years after.
Yeah, true. I know. That's right. We still don't know. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you in 20 years and then there's nothing we do.
Yes. When it's way too late.
Way too late. But we can say sorry if we need to. So anything else on Monday after the Circus of the Stars or Little House?
Let's see. What's 9:00 on Monday? I did have... No, you know what? This would have been TV off.
Yeah, this is a week.
There's nothing.
There's nothing.
No, there would be no decision making. That would be that.
Yeah, I can't blame you on that one. That's a weak hour.
Yeah.
There's a lot of prepping for tomorrow because in the morning it's the Queen Elizabeth Silver Jubilee.
I saw that. Isn't that amazing? Look at her. That's that kind of thing. Like my grandparents would get up at 5:30 in the morning to watch that.
Oh yeah.
So if we were staying there, that we definitely would be getting to bed early to watch that the next morning.
And that was the same day that the Sex Pistols, that Malcolm McLaren had them rent that boat in the Thames and have that media stunt because it was during the Jubilee.
Oh my God, that's right.
So that was this day.
It's weird that that's not covered in the TV guide.
Weirdly, I was always curious about how that stuff was covered in the U.S. press because as like a huge punk nerd, and it really wasn't at all.
I was going to say, I would say not at all. Yeah,
it seemed to be that when they did that tour, like that intentionally.
I feel like that's
hockey tonk bars. Yeah,
yep. I think that's the first time I ever saw them in American media was during that.
You know Kathy Valentine, right?
Yeah.
She was at their Texas show.
Oh my God.
As a kid. She's like 15 and she told me, she's like, I was watching it. I was just like, why would anyone want to be in a band like this? Because have the audience hate you. Why would you do this?
People are literally spitting on them. Why would they?
This is like a fight for your life. I don't understand, but I'm like, that's amazing. So Tuesday, what'd you do?
Tuesday, let's see, Happy Days.
This is Gary Marshall night all the way.
Definitely not Billy Graham.
No.
In my atheiist households, it
Same,
would not.
yeah.
Even the lure of Johnny and June on there would not have made my parents, and they huge Carter Cash fans, but they would never have turned on.
They weren't going to be doing any good songs.
Exactly.
It's going to be what?
Won't be any of the good ones.
Yeah, some hymns maybe.
Yeah.
They weren't going to be doing good stuff.
More power to them, but yeah.
Not what we want to see. And
No.
Billy Graham always terrified me when these specials would air because they were so like apocalyptic and weird.
Yeah. Yep. Happy Days for sure. My dad is a huge Henry Winkler fan, so absolutely in his house that would have been what was on.
This is a classic bottle episode, which a bottle episode, one set, saved money during the season. And this is while collecting items for a time capsule, several of the boys and girls managed to encapsulate themselves in Howard's hardware store vault, because hardware stores have vaults.
Like half an hour in heaven.
Yes. Oh man. This is when they were still setting the show in the 50s. Like by about 79, 80, they just stopped pretending.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And this is around the time Chuck disappeared.
Yes.
Forever.
Before Richie came back with a mustache.
And Chuck ceased to exist or ever be mentioned again.
Yeah, she's like, we don't worry about him. I had Donnie Most on, and Donnie,
no way.
Amazing guy. He's got a 17-piece swing band now. That's what he does.
Wow.
And he just is a singer. And I met him down at Foxwoods, and we were recording, and we were just like sitting off to the side, and maybe every 10 minutes, someone would come up and be like, Ralph Malph, will you call my wife? It's like, he's like, okay. But it was around this time that he was the guy, and he had to be reminded of this by Ron Howard. He was the guy that coined the jump the shark thing being bullshit because
really?
he got the script for that episode and he goes, Ron was like, Don, don't you remember you came to my trailer and you're like, what the hell is this shit?
I don't think I've ever seen that episode.
It's bad.
But, yeah.
It's entertaining because it's so bad, but it's bad.
Yeah. We might have not been watching it by then. Or I can't remember, but I never saw that. That coinable episode.
You are lucky. I imagine you had to stick with the Gary Marshall universe and go with Laverne and Shirley after.
1000%. I definitely, because I would say that my dad was more the Happy Days fan, and we liked it. But Laverne and Shirley 1000%. I loved that show. Loved it so much, and I love the premise of this one. Lenny and Squiggy vanish after the girls reject their invitation to the circus. And I think they joined the circus. Is that correct? Or they tried? Correct. I do sort of remember this one a little bit.
That is correct.
What babies.
It's hilarious. This was a show that we never saw a relationship with friends like this on television before this. Two single young women who lived together was not a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
We didn't see it. It was divorcees or married couples or whatever. So it was like this friendship that was unusual.
Yeah. And again, blue collar, like that's another piece of this one that totally, that resonated and that appealed to me too. And I just was like, just as a kid, just thinking that looked like heaven to me. Just a BFF in an apartment on your own. Perfect.
Yep. We got our own money, but they were constantly like struggling. Like they're like, oh, what are we gonna? We got to pay the like. There was like a struggle.
Yeah, I was not unfamiliar with that myself, though. So that seemed doable.
Right, but not always presented on television.
Struggle. I mean, yeah, just. It was just, working life accurately. They definitely had a lot more time off.
Yes. They only worked in the opening credits. There was no other time they were at work. We work about an hour a week. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everyone will be all right. And I always forget, Michael McKean seems ageless to me. I forget that he's Lenny.
Mm-hmm.
He was just like, looks the same age then
all the time.
And I always love when they would do musical stuff. Like there's a Christmas one where it's that sort of classic Christmas cliche where they're performing in a prison, which weirdly is like 10 sitcoms have done that plot. I don't know.
Right.
And Lenny and Squiggy, it's McKeon plays an original song called The Jolly Fat Man. And it's really funny and really good.
I don't remember that one.
They put out a Lenny and Squiggy album that's really funny. It's great. It's like the Fireside Theater. It's
there was so much music on that show. Like Carmine was a lounge singer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and I think all those people.
Lowell, Massachusetts. Carmine.
Yeah.
Eddie Mecca. I saw him in New Hampshire once. He was driving his car and his license plate says Big Ragu.
No, it doesn't.
Oh, it does.
Oh, that's amazing.
I mean, I guess
anytime we play Milwaukee, I always, of course, I'm just like, here we are, my dream pad. My childhood dream pad.
You guys never cover the theme when you're in Milwaukee?
I love that. No,
I mean, that'd be perfect.
oh my God, I love that city. That's one of my favorite places.
I've never been. I have to put it on my list.
It's so good. It's just the architecture, the food, just the people. It's just so wonderful. I love that city. Highly, highly recommended.
I do like cheese. Do you have a favorite TV theme song?
I mean, I think it is this one. It might be this one, or this is one of them. This is up there for sure. Yeah, this is up there. For some reason, Rockford Files.
Oh, that one's great. Mike Post.
I love that. Yeah, I love that piece of music.
Yeah, that's like a weird Emerson, Lake and Palmer synth solo. That
and then Twin Peaks, of course, because I'm a huge Julee Cruise fan.
Side note, did you watch Twin Peaks: The Return?
I didn't. No. Okay. I was for the original, but now you can be mad at me as I was for you for turning down Beto's drawing, but I don't think I even made it all the way to Fire Walk with Me. Or I did. I think Dean and I went to see it, but we hadn't watched
season 2.
The end of season 2 or something.
It's bad.
It just stopped. It started to just sort of, I felt the darkness without
the light.
Without the light, yeah, or without sort of the reasoning, or I just lost. It's not that I'm not in any way a critic or critiquing or it's just completely personally.
You are not alone. This is
working for me.
This is a common thought that because Lynch quit halfway through the second season, and then weirdly Diane Keaton came.
I didn't know that.
And directed a bunch of episodes. Yeah. And it got stupid. And then Lynch came back and did the final episode, which is amazing. But I ask about The Return because I loved it, but everyone I know who is a huge fan of the original Twin Peaks hated it. I'm going to drop some names. I apologize, everybody. Janine Garofalo, who's the biggest Lynch fan I know, couldn't watch the second episode. Josh Caterer from Smoking Popes, he canceled Showtime. He hated it so much. And he's a huge David Lynch fan. He unfollowed David Lynch on social media. He canceled Showtime.
He's the baby's going out with the bathroom.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, but stick with it. It's actually really good. Oh boy. Julee Cruise lives in Western Mass, has a Labradoodle.
Love her voice so much.
Have you ever heard her pre-Lynch stuff?
No, I haven't.
She sings like Janis Joplin.
Oh, wow. Well, I do know the her space. So Dean, when Juliana Hatfield 3 toured with B-52s when she was temporarily in them. And he said he was just her speaking voice is nothing that you would imagine.
Yeah.
But it would be
a rock and roll voice.
She's hilarious and kind of irreverent and a little, yeah.
Yeah, they got her to sing that ethereal sort of
Well, it's a beautiful sound. I will say that.
I love that stuff. Yeah, Falling is such a great record. Actually, I think somewhere behind me I have Industrial Symphony No.
I'm so impressed with what's happening behind you. I'm trying to distract.
It's a mess. Yeah, this is my.
No, it's not. it's organized chaos. Which I love. I mean, it's not chaos. It's organized.
It's very dense. Yeah, this is my agreement with my wife. Is it all stays in here?
Oh, it's really it just looks so exciting and
it's very comforting.
Happy. Yeah.
An original screen use tea set from Drop Dead Fred.
Oh wow! Oh, so there's like sort of memorabilia in there as well. Yeah.
There's some weird stuff. I actually have. You can't see it from where you are, but I have an Audrey doll from Twin Peaks that Sherilyn Fenn made.
Sherilyn Fenn made?
She made it.
She made the doll.
Yeah, she was going to sell them for a while, and then they gave her a cease and desist. So I got like one of the only ones that she made.
That's not fair that she got cease and desist.
I think they're letting her do some stuff now, but it's really cool. So yeah, I have some stuff like that. I blew up a screen grab from when my dad and my uncle were on Bozo the Clown in 1963. I found the episode. It was like one of the greatest things in my life. I was like, oh man, I found it.
That's awesome.
It was very cool. But yeah, so it's kind of it's all in here. I always joke I was sort of built for lockdown.
Right. Yeah. Well, I will tell you, aside from the normal fears, we were sort of like, we're kind of good at this.
Yeah. I was like, all right.
Turns out we're really good at staying home.
Yeah. I can order food. I got everything I need. All right. It's fine. So after Laverne and Shirley, what'd you do at 9?
Oh, MASH. Both houses would be MASH.
The biggest show on TV at the time.
Yes. And both every adult in my life was loyal to that one. I liked it too. I think it felt, my dad's from a military family, and so I think we all had a sense of the weight of war, I mean, and being coming out of Vietnam and living in this country, you have that anyway, but just, having military in family, there was a part of me as a kid where I just felt sort of, I really did like that show. The humor didn't connect with me, a little too sort of like cheesy sexual sometimes. And so that wasn't my vibe at that point at 11. So I didn't dig that so much. Definitely funny at times. It's weird. That one is kind of like older style humor in a new skin, which was always, I liked Radar O'Reilly. I remember that.
It was very sort of vaudeville. A lot of the jokes were kind of like...
Yeah, just kind of that fast-paced, like riffing,
Groucho Marx impressions.
And then all of the sudden casualties start coming in and it becomes a show about war, really a show about death.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most harrowing finales I've ever seen, that it was a baby thing, literally haunts me.
Yeah.
Day.
Yeah.
Horrifying. And this particular episode is one you may or may not remember where he's having nightmares and they depict all the nightmares and they're horrifying.
Right.
Traumatic to watch. And some of them are funny. It's like the tone is just all over the place.
I totally, I understand the importance of this show and the showing, just the taking more on and taking on our culpability and part in, that it's just, as a kid, it was a hard hang, I think sometimes.
A lot of it goes in the same category as ER for me, which are shows that I say, very quality show, never want to see it again.
Yeah.
Don't need to watch it again.
Yes.
Wednesday, what'd you do?
If I never see another gurney.
Yes, I'll be fine. That was devastating. Well done.
Right. I know. Yeah. Shout out to essential workers.
Yeah. Geez.
On that note. Straight to heaven.
Which is on Wednesday. We have Billy Graham Crusade. Two different ones on.
And then one day at a time. Just one day at a time would be after.
Oh yes,
for sure.
MASH is a half hour.
I know it feels like 2 hours.
Yeah, it feels like you've gone through some shit for 2 hours.
All 30 minutes. One day at a time would be after that, which my mom loved. I have to say, aside from Mackenzie Phillips, I don't remember a ton of it, but I remember really being focused on her and just feeling like just the anxiety rolling off that character and that actor. Just, I remember feeling her. I remember her, but I don't really remember much else about that one, but I know that we watched it because it was one of my mom's favorites.
It was unusual because it was a divorced mom with two daughters. Yeah, the comic relief was the superintendent guy who would come, with the mustache and be like, "Oh, I'm an idiot."
Right.
And then Valerie Bertinelli, of course, was like the sweetheart that everybody loved.
Yep.
Even though she was just partying it up with Van Halen at the time. Which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's
funny.
The new one's actually really good. The reboot they did of One Day at a Time.
That I do want to watch that. I don't think that we have access to that for some reason. We have very limited
Netflix.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We do have Netflix. I'll check.
I think it's on Netflix. It's good. It's funny because they use almost the same scripts, but it's a Hispanic family and set in modern times, and you realize that that's who those people. Those people then are these people now.
Right. I'll check it out. That sounds good.
It's a good show. All
right. Wednesday's a tough one because I actually don't know the answer to this because I remember watching, or maybe Wednesday might not have been a big night for us. And again, like a lot of this is just fantasy, fantasy memory. Donnie and Marie, absolutely. We used to watch depending on who the guests were. And we would have watched this week because it's Sonny and Cher. And I was obsessed with Cher when I was a kid and still am. So I think probably Donnie and Marie would have won out that night, but we did watch Good Times as well. So I don't know the answer to this one.
This is what a weird lineup on Donnie and Marie this night. So you have Sonny and Cher.
It looks like it's crowded. Does that look very crowded?
I don't remember. I mean, this does look crowded, to be honest. Yeah, because you have Sonny and Cher are enough to fill the whole show, you would think.
Yeah.
But then you have Paul Lynde, big personality there.
Yeah.
Edgar Bergen, Candice Bergen's father. Billy Barty.
Loretta Swift. What the heck?
Spike Jones Jr.
I know. This is so odd.
And then 5 songs. Let's see.
But then I love that it just says like 2 songs, that it just shows like 2, like, and then also Marie sings these songs and Donnie sings these.
Yeah. Just so in case you were like, well, I'll watch it, but only if Donnie sings something like Sunshine Lady or Do You Believe in Magic? Oh, I can't even imagine how soulless Donnie Husband's Do You Believe in Magic is.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that show was guest based, but Good Times we did. I would say that probably it would have been Good Times.
I do love Good Times.
Yeah.
I did a show in Reno, Nevada this was the lineup. Me, Jimmy J.J. Walker.
What?
And the unknown comic.
Oh my God. Do you have a video documentation of that?
I do. It was real weird. And I'd actually done shows with Jimmy twice, and he's a real weird guy. And he comes in and he's like,
don't say.
I know, it's a big shock. He'll be like, you make sure your act's like squeaky clean. It's gotta be, which mine always is. I'm like, yeah, that's fine. And then he'll go up and just be racist and filthy for like a full hour. And I'm like, perfect. Great. Now I see why you wanted it.
And he's like, thank you. Good night.
I am Jimmy Walker. So that is 8 o'clock to 9. And then what'd you do?
8 o'clock to 9 would be, let's see.
It's Donnie and Marie in the 9.
Probably TV off. Although my dad, maybe Beretta at my dad's. I would love to say that we watched Soylent Green because that would be my choice now. Yeah. But no movies. That was almost never an option.
Did you go to the movies a lot, or?
We went to the movies. Yeah. If anything, Beretta, but I'm going to say probably TV off.
Fair enough. Yeah. But now I want to watch.
Oh, wait. As well. Oh, no. Did I miss that? That's Charlie's Angels hour, though?
Is it on at 9 o'clock on Wednesday?
Oh, no. That's later.
Okay. I was going to say.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
It's later in the thing. So where are we? Thursday?
Yes. Oh, Welcome Back, Kotter, for sure.
I can't do it. I've tried.
When I was a kid, I loved it. I just thought, I know. I mean, it would be a tough one now, but I actually remember this episode as I'm reading the recap of him working in a fast food place for extra. extra income just as a chicken. I do remember this. Yeah, this is a weird, I'm going to guess, and I'm saying this without any evidence, but this one might not hold up as much, but I love the premise. And I just thought, I don't know, this is one of the ones where I was just like, what's going to happen? I just want to.
I mean, this is post Grease John Travolta, when he was still on Welcome Back, Kotter. And it was that thing where someone's now a movie star and they have to still contractually be on the TV show. And you can kind of tell when you're watching it, which is always.
Yes. This one might be a lazy night of just like, okay, Welcome Back, Kotter. And then what's happening?
Yeah. I mean, I like what's happening.
Yeah, I like what's happening too.
Hilarious.
Yeah.
But I've tried to watch Welcome Back, Kotter, and I can't lock into it.
Right.
For whatever reason. But to your point, that premise, that would make a great dramedy.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah.
It's kind just so silly.
Right. It is kind of silly. It's sort of like just sort of a
cartoon,
a washed out To Sir with Love kind of stuff. Yeah, I can't remember thinking. I honestly can't remember thinking it was funny, but I know that's the one that would have, if anything was going to be on this kind of weird night, it would have been that one. And then What's Happening? I remember D, and I remember
Rerun.
Of course. This one we might have been more. Every once in a while kind of thing.
There's a famous episode of What's Happening that comes up all the time where they try to bootleg a concert and Rerun has like a 1970s tape recorder like hidden on them.
Bootleg for their own edification or for...
They're going to sell them. Yeah. So they try to sneak in recording equipment circa 1978 into a concert, that's like 2 suitcases worth of stuff, which is pretty amazing. The movie DOA is on, which I want to mention because I love that movie.
Where is that? Is that
it's on channel 27 at 8:00. Yeah. Okay. I'm a big noir nerd, and this is such a good movie. This is it was remade in the 80s with Meg Ryan and Dennis Quaid.
Oh yeah, right.
It's got that one of the most amazing opening scenes in a movie ever, where he goes into the police station and goes, "I want to report a murder, my own."
Yeah,
because he's been poisoned, and so he has like 2 days to live or something.
I've never seen it, but I know. Yeah,
it's great. It's just
I know that moment.
Very gripping. And then 9, what'd you do?
9 would be Hawaii Five-0. I think.
Fun show.
Yeah, I think that's one of the few like sort of like crime dramas that we would all agree on. And I mean, I remember Barney Miller and Fish, but so I must have at some point watched them, but definitely remember Hawaii Five-0.
Barney Miller and Fish were shows that were too old for me, but I've come to absolutely love as an adult. Like Barney Miller is maybe my favorite sitcom.
Really?
It's so good. It's so ahead of its time and funny, and like the stuff that they managed to do on that show, heavy, but like just amazing. And it's anyone that asked me about writing comedy for television, which, I'm sorry that you asked me, but I always point them to that show because it's literally one set, 5 characters, 200 episodes. That's it. And every episode's good.
Good. All right. I will check it out.
Very good.
There's another, I have to say too, that there's a very strong possibility that Age of Uncertainty would have been both of my parents' choice at that time.
I don't know. It's a documentary about Karl Marx.
About Karl Marx, yeah. And I think that would have been like a teaching, they would have taken that as a teaching moment. And that could have, I'm looking at it, I'm like, I bet that's, were it up to them, I think that would have overshadowed Hawaii Five-0 for that night, because that's definitely something that would be of interest to both of them, that they would want to.
I love that kind of like Hawaii Five-0 versus Karl Marx. That's perfect.
Yes, well, the kids campaign would be not age.
Yes.
I'm gonna guess.
Kids love
But I
Karl
think-
Marx.
Exactly.
He's kind of like Santa Claus.
Social science was my jam when I was 11.
I mean, most 11-year-old girls are into like ponies, social sciences, Karl Marx, smashing the proletariat, that sort of thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a weird night. And then
Much more so now. I would say that's much more of a.
Yeah, I'd watch that now for sure.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely watch that now. But even my kids would probably choose that, to be honest.
Fair enough.
This era, I'm going to say that. As I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, that's what we would have
I
been.
think it's still there
watching.
in Central Square near the Middle East. There's like there's like the Karl Marx Center for Education or something.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
SF. And it's,
Yeah, I've driven by that.
for a while, it was also the same space was used by a dance academy.
Yep.
So it was like the Karl Marx.
Both of my kids took dance lessons there when they were little.
So it makes it seem like it's the Karl Marx Center for Dance.
Academy.
Yeah.
Something not a lot of people know about him, but he was an excellent dancer.
Yes, and the synchronization, fantastic.
Amazing modernist dance.
Yes, no solos. So Friday night, final night of the week. What are you doing?
Okay, final night of the week would be, let's see, wow, Billy Graham over and over. Is it just this week that he's on every night? Is
Yeah, he'd take over like a whole week, like twice.
Okay. All right. Sanford and Son, 100%. That was a staple for all the adults in my life. My grandparents, my parents loved that show. And then into Rockford. So yeah, that's absolutely what would have been that night.
So this is a good night. First of all, this Rockford Files has Alex Rocco in it, who is from Somerville and started the Winter Hill Gang.
No way.
Yeah, he was someone made a move on someone's girlfriend, and then there was a gang war between the Italians and the Winter Hill Gang and Whitey Bulger's group. And so Alex Rocco got ushered out of Massachusetts. His father knew Leonard Nimoy from the old neighborhood and was like, go out to LA and take his acting classes. So
Nice.
Alex
Save
Rocco,
yourself.
yeah, it's fun. Go out there. And
Yeah.
so he started acting and, was in The Godfather and all these other things. But he's one of those people that when I would see in something, I'm like, why does he sound like a real person? And it's because he's the dude from Somerville,
Right.
which is hilarious.
That's so, yeah. I remember, I loved the Rockford Files. I always felt like just the plots in that one were just so, I felt, I remember just being like, I guess the ending almost every time.
I'm a genius.
Yes. I'm basically a detective.
But it's such a fun show, and James Garner is just so charming. And
Yeah.
Juliana Hatfield's favorite show is The Rockford Files.
Yep.
Holds up. Like, that's a show.
And best theme song.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely best theme song. That is a great piece of music. And yeah, that show was great.
It feels very contemporary, too. Like, I rewatched
Does it? Okay. I know, because I'm gonna confess, I had 99% of these I haven't watched since. So
You're right. It's a pretty good batting average. A lot of these do hold up. Now,
what about Sanford? Because I loved that one when I was a kid.
it's very 70s, but
Elizabeth.
Red Fox is just so magnetic
Mm-hmm.
that he's just amazing. He was cellmates with Malcolm X.
I think I knew that. I feel
Which
like
is crazy. Like he's one of those guys. I always say with these actors lived a life before.
we just have right.
We don't have that now. Like, but they would bring all that to the screen. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he'd been doing those dirty stand-up records for like 20 years by the time Sanford and Son started.
Right.
So he's got a whole thing, and it reads. That is a fun show. Have you ever seen the British show it was based on, Steptoe and Son?
No.
It's funny because there was about 5 or 6 US sitcom remakes of British shows. All in the Family's another one. And you look at Sanford and Son, you go, he's a junk man while they're poor and whatever. But then you watch the British one and you're like, oh no, they're rich. Because the British one is so depressing and grim.
Really?
Yeah, it's like,
Is it also a sitcom?
oh yeah, it's a comedy. But
Dark. Yeah.
it's 1960s England, you know.
Right.
The guy's a junk man. It's real grim, and it's like such a great illustration of the difference between the two countries post World War II.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We'll see your Sanford, and we'll show you this.
Yes, we'll raise you. We'll make this junkyard's a palace. There's a great article here after too about Alan Alda not liking being a celebrity.
Really?
Which is great. And there's, Marshall McLuhan quotes, and Alan Alda actually grew up in a lot of the burlesque houses in Scollay Square in Boston.
Is that in this article as well?
It's not. I've read one of his books, but his dad was a vaudeville comedian.
I didn't know that.
So it would take him
he's a Bostonian? Sort
of. Like, his dad was based out of New York, but Scollay Square was literally the burlesque headquarters of the world. So like, he was here all the time, and he writes about being backstage and like helping the burlesque dancers with their costumes.
Oh, that's amazing.
Watching sailors getting fights and all this stuff is just nuts.
Right.
So
like,
it's
right.
It's weird that he'd be like,
bringing a life into work again. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not people who are like, well, I've been going to acting school since I was 4.
Yes.
And that's all I've done. Is there any like classic shows that you've revisited as a comfort during COVID or anything like that?
Carol Burnett, for sure. Yeah, absolutely that. But I think more we sort of caught up on sort of more recent things that we haven't watched, and just watched a lot of cooking. That's sort of a lot of cooking. It was so much baking, so much competitive cooking. That's it. I feel like part of that was too, we had our oldest and her partner here with us, and for 6 months of quarantine, and back to just we wanted to be in the same room a lot of the time, but we wanted something we could all agree on, and so that ended up being food driven.
right. We can't watch something, let's make something.
There's a lot of that.
There's nothing wrong with that. America's Test Kitchen has been my best friend in the last year and a half.
Yeah. We binged a bunch of that. We also we watched Umbrella Academy, Schitt's Creek. We did a lot of newer stuff that we had missed. So it was catching up more on the past 5 years or so.
Yeah, all the quality TV that everyone tells you about that you're like, oh yeah, no, watch that.
Yeah. Right. It's just all those like names that are rattling around that I never got around to. So
this is the year to do it. Again, we're built for this.
Yeah. I do want to say, ending the week, 9:00 on Friday, Dateline Rhode Island.
Yes. Which is weirdly appropriate.
That would have been. Clearly would have been not Age of Uncertainty Part 2.
No, that would have been the only thing that could supersede Age of Uncertainty.
Exactly. The only thing trumping socialism in my homes at that time would have been
Quahog Talk.
Yeah, like exactly. Finding out what's going on.
Are we talking about the means of production?
I'm going to say the Dateline Rhode Island would have been rife with little crimes too.
Oh God, yeah.
Some of which I'd be very familiar with.
Was this Cianci? Cianci was later, right?
I think this was part 1 Cianci. Am I wrong? My dad and stepmom are both actors in Rhode Island, Trinity, and the GAM Theater, and a bunch of really wonderful theaters in Rhode Island. And he was a huge supporter and patron of the arts. So, he would do things like sort of say, I'm going to make a speech on the state steps. And he'd have my dad come and be Kennedy.
It's more theatrical, Mayor.
Yeah, they were. I mean, it's not a. It was just sort of. He was at the theater a lot. He would. He'd come to rock shows. He was just out and about. The one thing I can say about without any equivocating is that he was very good for the arts.
He was.
Yes. That doesn't. Whatever. That's just a fact. It's not in support of anything else that happened. So this is a say, you want to get a roadie stuttering, just bring this subject up. And like right now I'm sweating and
they'll know.
Nervous. I'm suddenly quite nervous. And
we've switched the topic to coffee milk and everything's fine.
Yes.
Clam cakes.
Right. Can we just talk about clam cakes?
Yeah. Oh, I missed them.
Bells.
There you go. That's Tanya. How great is she is. Again, I said, one of the coolest people I know, just incredibly talented and charming and fun. Go buy all her records. Every single one. There's not a ton. You could buy them all. And you should. I highly recommend that. And she's doing new music and just, you can't go wrong listening to Tanya. And I think I've fawned enough, everybody. But that she's great. Anyway, if you want to request other people that I should try to have as guests on the show, you can do so at tvguidancecounselor@gmail.com or ken@ikenread.com. I'm also on social media at Kenneth W. Reed, REID, or at TV Guidance. You can send me a message there. I love hearing from you guys. Let me know anything, really, how you're doing, how you're holding up. I'm hopefully going to start doing some episodes in person again now that, we'll see. Things are a little touch and go, but I'm hoping by the fall. So if you were waiting for that, that's something to look forward to. Speaking of things to look forward to, next week, be here because I'll have a brand new episode of TV Guidance Counselor.
Oh my God. I am mad at you then.
Yeah, I am mad at myself now too, but he was just
outrageous, Ken.